How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Concordia Jedi, and after a few years, welcome back to a new what-if scenario. Today, we're going to look at what would have happened if, instead of Obi-Wan going to confront Grievous, Yoda was sent to hunt down the droid general instead. Now in the films, the Council unanimously agrees that Obi-Wan should be the one to take out Grievous. In this scenario, however, let's change it up. Let's say that in this scenario, Yoda is selected by the Council to defeat Grievous. However, that leaves us with a big question.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
Well, the way I see it, this leaves us with three scenarios. Scenario 1, Yoda goes to Utapau while Obi-Wan is sent to Kashyyyk. Scenario 2, the defense of Kashyyyk is left to be overseen by Master Luminara, who, if you look closely, is on Kashyyyk during the film. Or, we can go with Scenario 3, which is Mace Windu goes to Kashyyyk. For this what if, we're going to go with option 3. Let's say that the scenario starts just after Anakin is denied the rank of Master. In this scenario, Yoda does not leave for Kashyyyk. Instead, Mace Windu is selected for this assignment. Afterwards, Anakin is seething at the fact that he's been denied the rank of Master. Obi-Wan tries to console his former Padawan, but Anakin brushes this away. He would then be informed by Obi-Wan of his new assignment, to spy on the Chancellor. Anakin's distrust of the Council would continue to grow. From here, things would play out as they did. Anakin would be summoned to the Opera House by Palpatine, who would inform Anakin that he knows of the Jedi's plan to have Anakin spy on him. He would tell Anakin the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and Anakin would leave feeling far more lost and confused than before. The next day, the Council is in session. Mace Windu gives his report from Kashyyyk, and Anakin informs the Council that Palpatine wants him to lead the campaign. Windu, however, shoots this idea down, as Yoda states that a master is needed. However, instead of nominating Obi-Wan, Ki-Adi-Mundi instead nominates Yoda. Knowing that Yoda was by far the most experienced of the Order, and that his presence would be nearly undetectable, Yoda would think it over. He decides that he will go and bring Grievous to justice. The Council would agree, and Yoda would soon be on his way to Utapau. This is where we would see a major change in the story. In Revenge of the Sith, one of the biggest reasons Anakin falls is because he's separated from one of his closest friends, his brother in a sense. He's vulnerable as the only person he's able to turn to is the Jedi who trusts him the least, Mace Windu. But with Obi-Wan here, how would this scenario play out? Let's say that Yoda arrives on Utapau and prepares to engage Grievous. Here we see one of the biggest differences between Yoda and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan in the film, rather than maintaining the element of surprise, jumps down and announces his presence to the entire room, setting himself at an immediate disadvantage. Yoda, however, would send for his clone battalion on the double, who would arrive as the Separatist leaders were leaving. The clones would open fire on the battle droids, who would be caught off guard. Grievous, being the coward he is, would attempt to escape, only to be confronted by Yoda, who, in a swift few seconds, would make quick work of Grievous' bodyguards. As the clones would mow their way through the droids, Yoda would engage in a duel with Grievous. Now here we have some speculation on my part, but I'm confident in my conclusions. Obi-Wan was selected in canon to face Grievous because of his mastery of Form 3 lightsaber combat, which is a purely defensive form. However, I feel that Yoda may have had just as much of an advantage against Grievous, not only due to his smaller stature, but also due to the fact that Grievous had never encountered Yoda and would be hard-pressed to effectively defend against him. Now, let's say that their duel continues and Yoda disarms Grievous of his weapons. Grievous tries to escape on his wheel bike, only for Yoda to lift the bike in the air with the Force and send it colliding into a group of battle droids. Grievous is surrounded by Yoda and several clones. He grabs a battle droid blaster and fires on several clones. Yoda, however, recognizes that Grievous is not going to come quietly. Leaping forward, Yoda slices open Grievous' chest, exposing his organs. Grievous manages to grip Yoda in his clutches, but the clones, seeing the opportunity, fire upon the droid general, destroying his insides and killing him. Yoda would help the clones clear the rest of the hangar before contacting the Council, informing them that Grievous had been eliminated and several Separatist leaders had been captured in the ambush. Anakin would then be sent to inform the Chancellor of this development. Here, things play out similarly. Anakin would inform Palpatine of this development, and Palpatine would reveal himself as the Sith Lord. Like in the film, Anakin would leave, vowing to inform the Council of this terrible truth. However, with Mace on Kashyyyk and Yoda on Utapau, Who would Anakin tell? I think Anakin would go to Obi-Wan. Anakin would call Obi-Wan to the council chamber to reveal the truth. Master, I've just learned a terrible truth. It's Chancellor Palpatine. He's the Sith Lord. He's the one behind everything. Anakin, are you sure of this? Yes, he knows the dark side. We must inform the council. If what you've said is true, we are sitting in a trap that could spring at any moment. Master, the Chancellor is powerful. You're going to need my help to arrest him. Anakin, there is much confusion in you. There is something you are not telling me. I've told you everything, Obi-Wan. I don't know what you're talking about. Obi-Wan would turn to face his friend. Anakin, look at me. You can tell me anything. Feeling his world tightening around him and on the verge of tears, Anakin would tell Obi-Wan everything. About his marriage, about his unborn child, about his visions of losing Padme, and about Palpatine's promises. Anakin, I don't know what to do, Master. I know my destiny is to destroy the Sith. It's the only thing that's ever been clear to me in my time as a Jedi. But I can't lose Padme. I can't live without her. And the Chancellor claims he knows how to save her. I'm lost, Obi-Wan. Everything I've ever known about myself is in conflict. And with every second, I feel that no matter what I do, something terrible is bound to happen. Anakin, when Qui-Gon first introduced me to you, I saw only a simple child with no place in my future. After he died and I took you as my apprentice, I learned far more about you and about myself. I have taught you everything that I know. I now think back to our first meeting on Tatooine, and I am astonished to see the man you have become. You are the most gifted Jedi I have ever known. But more than that, you have become much more than a student to me. You are my brother, Anakin, and I would do anything to help you. The two Jedi would look at each other as though for the first time in years really seeing how the other has grown and changed. Anakin would feel a sense of relief having told Obi-Wan his secret. Thank you, Obi-Wan. I know I haven't been the easiest student to train, and my trust in the Jedi has been shaken. If there was one Jedi I knew I could trust, it's you. Obi-Wan would put a hand on Anakin's shoulder and smile. A dread would fill the air, however. Master, what are we going to do? I know that Palpatine has to be stopped, but Padme, she... Calm your mind, Anakin. You must realize that Palpatine is using you. After you killed Count Dooku, he knew that you would be a suitable replacement. We can't allow that to happen. Palpatine can't make a move against the Jedi without cause. For the moment at least, we have time to think. If we arrest Palpatine, he still maintains control over the courts and the Senate. Arresting him would give him all the reason he needs to end the Jedi. So what do we do? We must contact Master Yoda immediately. The Jedi would run to the communication tower and contact Yoda, who would be nearing the end of Utapau's liberation at this time. They would tell Yoda to return to the temple immediately. Yoda would agree, sensing the drastic change in the very nature of the Force. Within hours, Yoda would return and Obi-Wan and Anakin would explain everything. Realized our worst fears have been. So what are we going to do? Before Yoda could respond, Anakin's comlink would beep. He would be informed that the Chancellor has requested him in his office. What should I do? We cannot allow him to go alone, Master. I doubt you'd be allowed to pass as security. Go, Skywalker will. Another route we will take. A friend I have in the Senate who may help us. Yes, Master. Anakin, trust in the Force. With a nod, Anakin would leave and arrive at the Chancellor's office, while Yoda and Obi-Wan would call Bail Organa to sneak them past the security and into the building where they would make their way towards Palpatine's office. Anakin, I sense great confusion in you. Don't talk to me like I'm some kind of Padawan. I ought to kill you right now for manipulating me for all these years. I saw you as a mentor, but all I am to you is a pawn. How ironic that you talk of manipulation without realizing that the Jedi have manipulated you your entire life. Don't you know why they never made you a master? It's because they fear you, Anakin. They know that you are not like them. The Jedi seek to gain control of the Republic, and you are the key to their plot. I don't believe you. I won't betray the Republic, and I certainly won't betray the Jedi. The same Jedi who force you to keep your love of Senator Amidala a secret? Anakin, you know that if the Jedi were to learn of your wife, there would be dire consequences for you, and any chance of saving her would be lost. Please, let me help you. Stop talking! Without my guidance, Anakin, you will lose everything you hold dear. Only together would we be strong enough to save her. Enough! At this moment, Yoda and Obi-Wan would enter Palpatine's office to be greeted by a kind smile from the Chancellor. Master Yoda, Master Kenobi, what a pleasant surprise. Your game is finished, Chancellor. Dear me, whatever are you referring to? No, we do what you are. You are the Sith Lord. Is that right? Even if I am, that's hardly a crime. It may not be, but orchestrating an entire war and a plot to gain power most definitely is. And tell me, Master Jedi, how would you intend to prove this to the Senate if it were true? Do you intend to arrest me on false charges? One way or another, your tyranny ends today. The galaxy will soon know what you have done. The two Jedi would ignite their lightsabers. Palpatine would rise from his desk, slowly removing his saber from his sleeve and igniting a crimson blade. It's treason, then. Screeching and flying in a fury towards the Jedi, Obi-Wan would barely be able to defend himself from a strike from the Sith blade, his Form 3 technique being the only thing to save him. Yoda would unleash a fury of his own attacks against Palpatine as Anakin would rush to their aid. Even as powerful as these Jedi were, Palpatine's attacks would keep each of them on their toes. The fight would lead its way towards the window, which would be shattered into pieces. As Yoda would block a stab from Palpatine, redirecting it to the ground, Anakin would land a well-placed kick to Palpatine's face, causing his saber to tumble over the ledge and into the streets below. Surrender, Chancellor. You have nowhere to go. Palpatine in a fury would send torrents of lightning into the faces of the Jedi. Obi-Wan and Yoda would just barely be able to hold back his might. As the lightning would redirect from Yoda and Obi-Wan back at Palpatine, the room would shake. Anakin, please, help me. I surrender, please. Skywalker, your chance this is. Anakin would look at the man firing the lightning and back to the Jedi. Anakin would realize that his whole life as a Jedi has led to this moment, and yet there would be hesitation on his mind. What about Padme? Anakin, help us! If you don't stop him, the galaxy will be plunged into darkness! Anakin, I have the power to save the ones you love! You must choose! Time would seem to freeze as Anakin finally reaches the crossroads of his destiny. Deep down, the Jedi didn't matter to him as much as Padme. But if he allowed such a tyrant to rule, how could Padme ever look at him again? Thoughts of anger and betrayal filled his mind. Thoughts of keeping his marriage a secret. Of his mother's death. Suddenly, in the darkness of his mind, a voice called out to him. Almost a whisper. Trust in the Force. And in this moment, his decision would become clear. Lifting his lightsaber above his head, Anakin would strike. The lightning would stop. A sizzling smell of charred flesh filling the air, and breaking the silence, a final raspy breath escaping the body of Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin stood in shock as Yoda took a moment to rest. Anakin, it's over. You've done it. What now? Go, you will. Both of you. Report this to the Council, you must. Inform the Senate, I will. Anakin and Obi-Wan would swiftly return to the temple, alerting the Council, who would convene immediately. Yoda would be taken in for questioning. Within the days to follow, news would reach the Republic of the Chancellor's demise. A trial was set with Bail Organa and Padme Amidala representing the three Jedi. Upon searching through Palpatine's office and upon receiving testimony from the captured Separatist leaders in exchange for leniency, the evidence would soon be overwhelming. Palpatine would be discovered for the tyrant and manipulator he was. The Jedi would walk free. In the following days, using intelligence gained from the captured Separatist leaders, the remaining heads of the Separatist Alliance would be arrested and the battle droids and their production shut down. Anakin would be called to the council chamber to discuss his future. Mace Windu would speak up. Anakin Skywalker, you have violated several tenets of the Jedi Code, forming attachments and allowing your emotions to cloud your judgment. I understand, Master. However, you have shown remarkable bravery and strength of character, standing by the Order in its darkest hour. The Council has therefore come to a unanimous decision. Anakin Skywalker, we grant you the rank of Jedi Master. Filled with a righteous pride, Anakin would bow. Thank you, Master Windu. Your relationship with Senator Amidala has also been approved for you as a special favor to you for your loyalty to the Jedi Order. However, we ask that your primary loyalty be to the Republic and to the Force above all else. Yes, Master. However, I must request a leave of absence from the Jedi Order for a while. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but if you need me, I will let you know where I can be found. Agree with you. The Council does. Granted, your request is. The day would draw to an end. Seeing Obi-Wan staring into the setting sun on the steps of the temple entrance, Anakin would find his old master, and now, finally as equals, the two brothers would smile at each other. If you ever need any help, Obi-Wan. Oh, don't worry about me. Without you here, my biggest problem will be finding a way to keep my life exciting. Obi-Wan, when we fought Palpatine, I was scared and conflicted. I thought of everything the Jedi told me to repress. But then I heard a voice telling me to trust in the Force. I think it was Master Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon? I know it sounds crazy, but it's what I heard. The Force holds a great many mysteries, Anakin. Perhaps you did hear them. All I know is that these are mysteries we can solve together. One day. Sharing one last moment with each other, Anakin would leave the temple and go home to Padme. Padme would give birth on Naboo to two healthy children, a boy named Luke and a daughter named Leia. As the galaxy would enter a new era of peace, so too would Anakin Skywalker find peace amongst his new family for many years to come. So there you have it, guys. I know this was a long one, but I wanted to make this what if perfect because I've gotten so many comments from you guys about how you want more what ifs, and I really wanted to give you guys something thought out. I really do think this is what would have happened. I think Obi-Wan was that one figure outside of maybe Ahsoka that if Anakin opened up to, could have helped him. But let me know what you guys think. Leave a like and comment below and tell me what videos or topics you'd like to see me cover. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time on Concordia Jedi. And remember that the Force will be with you. Always. Hey guys, and welcome back to Concordia Jedi, and welcome to a new what if scenario. First of all, thank you all for your patience while waiting for this video. My job has left me very little time for big uploads, but luckily I found some time, and just in time for May 4th no less. For this video, I thought I'd take a look at my first what if I ever did and take it in a different direction. Instead of simply asking what if Obi-Wan survived in A New Hope, we are instead going to ask what if in his final duel with his former apprentice, Obi-Wan managed to defeat and end Darth Vader's life. Also, I'm happy to announce that this is our first what if using voice actors other than myself. I'll be sure to link them below. Let's start the scenario on the Death Star. Obi-Wan deactivates the tractor beam and makes his way back to the hangar where the Millennium Falcon is docked. Before he can reach the ship, Obi-Wan is accosted by Vader, saber ignited. Obi-Wan would ignite his saber in response.
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
The duel would be fierce, but reserved. Vader, remembering their last encounter, would keep his distance, and Obi-Wan, knowing his youthful days were far gone, would conserve his energy as much as possible.
You should not have come here, Kenobi. This day will see the end of you.
As the duel would continue, Han, Luke, and Leia would reach the hangar and, seeing their opportunity to escape to the Falcon, would rush over. Luke, however, would see Ben, locked in a confrontation with Vader.
Ben?
As Luke would say this, Obi-Wan would glance over. Here's where things would take a drastic turn. Vader would notice this young man as well, and staring at him, Vader would sense something. There was something familiar about this boy, as though he knew him.
No. Impossible.
His guard would drop ever so slightly. Seeing this brief moment of distraction, Obi-Wan's mind would be racing. Anakin Skywalker was gone. There was no light left in this shell of a man. Obi-Wan had long regretted not ending his former pupil's pain on the banks of Mustafar long ago. If he ended Vader here, he would not only end Vader's terror, but end his suffering as well. His mind was made up. Seizing the opportunity, Obi-Wan would swiftly bypass Vader's defenses, and with one swift stroke of his blade, Obi-Wan would quickly cut through Vader's armor at the neck, severing the Dark Lord's head from his shoulders. As the Dark Lord's form would collapse, the stormtroopers would open fire on Kenobi. Obi-Wan would quickly deflect as many shots as he could, taking a blast to the arm in the process. Seeing the danger, Luke would fire upon the stormtroopers, giving Obi-Wan the opportunity to regain himself, and with a mighty force push, he would send the remaining stormtroopers toppling to the floor. Han would tell Luke to shoot at the blast doors to prevent any more troopers from entering. Luke would do this, and rushing over would help Obi-Wan into the Falcon as they would take off. On board the Falcon, Obi-Wan would sit, exhausted and in pain from his wound, but mostly, he would be feeling terrible remorse at having to kill the man he once considered a brother. Leia would tend to Obi-Wan's wound as Luke would try and talk to his master.
Ben, that was amazing. I never thought that...
I'm sorry, Luke. I need some time to think.
Come on, kid, we're not out of the woods yet.
At this moment, Han would rush in, telling Luke that several TIE fighters were inbound to stop them. Luke and Han would rush to the guns as Leia would leave Obi-Wan to think and head to the cockpit. Things would play out very similarly from here on out. They would escape back to Yavin 4 and bring the Death Star schematics to the Alliance. Han would still plan on leaving the rebellion with his reward even after Luke urged him to stay. Although he wouldn't notice Obi-Wan, who would have R2 subtly place a small object on the hull of the Falcon. The Death Star run would play out similarly aside from one key element: no Vader. The remaining rebel pilots, normally taken out by Vader in the original timeline, would manage to keep the other TIE fighters off of Luke as he prepared to make the final shot. Luke would hear Ben's voice in his head speaking to him through the Force, telling him to let go, and taking Obi-Wan's advice, Luke would fire his torpedoes into the Death Star's exhaust port, destroying the Death Star. The rebels would return to Yavin and a great celebration would be had. Aside from Han, who in this scenario would in fact leave with his reward. Skipping forward a few months, the rebels would again set up a new base on Hoth. Ben would continue to train Luke during this time, teaching him more about the Force and the basics of Form 3 and Form 4 lightsaber combat, the two forms he trained in as a Jedi. Here, the events of The Empire Strikes Back would take place, although Vader is no longer in the picture. So, who would be put in charge of finding the rebels? I think that for the time being, Admiral Piet would be put in charge in Vader's absence while a new successor would be scouted for. Luke would still be attacked by the Wampa on Hoth, but here, with no Han, how would things play out? In the cave, Luke would defeat the Wampa as he did in the film, but I also think Luke would last longer than normally. Using his training from Obi-Wan to calm his mind and reach out, Luke would call to Ben through the Force. Obi-Wan, sensing Luke is in trouble, would call Leia to send out a few rebel scouts to find him. With Obi-Wan's sensitivity to the Force, he would be able to give them a more accurate idea of where Luke was. With great difficulty, possibly losing a tauntaun or two, They would retrieve Luke in the nick of time and bring him back to Echo Base before the doors would be closed. Luke would be rushed to a bacta tank to heal. He would wake up to be greeted by Ben and the others. Luke would thank Obi-Wan for saving him. Obi-Wan would tell Luke that his increasingly powerful abilities would require more training to hone properly. He would tell him that they would soon be off to Dagobah so Luke could train under a wise master named Yoda. Leia, however, would be immediately called to the war room, where they would discover 2 droid signals nearby. 2 rebel scouts would be sent to discover what they are, only to find that they were Imperial probe droids. The Empire had found them. The rebels would ready their snowspeeders and the Battle of Hoth would play out as it did, except here, Han would not be here to evacuate Leia on the Falcon. Obi-Wan, however, would take a small transport ship and, with Leia and 3PO, would barely escape the Imperial pursuit. Using the comlink on the transport, Ben would contact Luke, telling him to get to Dagobah and he would arrive there as soon as possible. Obi-Wan, though not the most skillful pilot, would manage to evade the Imperial pursuit for a good while. Entering an asteroid field, Leia would chastise him for this decision, only for Obi-Wan to make a very quick and risky maneuver and hide on the side of an asteroid, evading the fighters just long enough to fly the shuttle towards a large asteroid. Hiding on the asteroid, Obi-Wan would pull a small pulsating device from his robes and activate it.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing?
I'm calling an old friend. Meanwhile, Luke would land on Dagobah and things would play out as they did in the film, with Luke finding Yoda and Yoda putting on his shtick of a senile old creature. As in canon, Luke would discover that this creature is the master he was looking for. Yoda, still finding Luke to be far too reckless for training, would not turn Luke away, but would tell him they would wait for Obi-Wan to arrive before a decision could be made. Meanwhile, the Empire would be scouting the large nearby asteroids for Ben and Leia.
Sir, our fuel reserves are dangerously low. If they find us, we're doomed!
Patience. By the time they reach us, we will be long gone. Soon, 2 TIE bombers would approach the asteroids ready to attack, when suddenly both of them would be blown to smithereens. About time. Within seconds, the Millennium Falcon would land in front of the transport and would begin to dock as Han Solo and Chewbacca would come on board.
So you're the one who put a homing beacon on my ship. You're lucky I never found it or it would have gone straight in the trash.
We need your help. I need to get to Dagobah, and Leia must get back to the Alliance rendezvous.
Alright, fine. I hope you're good for it, old man.
Chewie and Han would get in the cockpit along with Obi-Wan, 3PO, and Leia. Just as they would leave the asteroid field, they would soon be followed by several TIE fighters. I do hope you know what you're doing.
Well, thanks to that reward money, I was able to pay off Jabba and still had enough left to fix up the Falcon. Now strap yourselves in.
Once strapped in, Han would make the jump to light speed. Meanwhile on Dagobah, Luke would be growing impatient.
You're really not going to teach me anything until Ben gets here?
Patience. If a Jedi you wish to become, patience you must learn.
Luke, frustrated, would step outside looking at the swamp. It seemed like such an odd place for a Jedi Master to live. Suddenly, Luke would feel something. Something cold. Something almost beckoning him. Grabbing his lightsaber and blaster, Luke would walk in the direction of this presence. He would find a dark cave, dreading to go in, but feeling compelled by the Force to do so. Luke would enter the cave, seeing nothing but darkness. Suddenly, he would see something. A dark, cloaked figure walking towards him. Luke would ignite his lightsaber in defense as the hooded figure would activate a crimson blade in return. The two would engage each other, with Luke barely able to contend with the power of this mysterious figure. Finally, with one quick movement, Luke would impale the stranger on his blade. The body would crumple to the ground, only to disappear in a cloud in the shape of Vader's mask. Luke would stand in shock for a few minutes before the form would disappear. He was alone. Luke would walk out to be greeted by Yoda, looking extremely disappointed.
Train you? I cannot. Down a dark path, your destiny leads.
But what about the Empire? I have to become strong enough to...
No. Power does not a Jedi seek. The Emperor you wish to destroy. But if face him with anger and vengeance in your heart, fail you will, and become the very thing you seek to destroy. You would.
Yoda would leave Luke at the mouth of the cave. Soon, the Falcon would make its way to Dagobah. As they would make a rough but safe landing, Ben and the others would exit the ship, spotting Luke's X-Wing not far away. Luke, sensing his master, would run over and greet his friends.
Luke, where is Master Yoda?
Luke would tell Obi-Wan that Yoda refuses to train him because of what happened in the cave. Obi-Wan would immediately go to Yoda's hut to talk with him, as Luke would catch up with Leia and Han, who would tell him of what he did after they last met, paying off his debt to Jabba, taking a few small jobs, and giving the Falcon some much-needed TLC. While waiting, Han would help Luke retrieve his X-Wing from the swamp by towing it out with the Falcon. After an hour or so, however, Luke would grow curious as to what they were talking about and would wander over to the hut and listen in.
Far too dangerous it would be to train Skywalker.
You must understand that Luke is our greatest hope for defeating the Emperor. Vader is gone and his threat has ended.
Ended the threat is not. For the blood of Vader runs through young Luke. Should he fall down the dark path as his father did, terrible darkness could he unleash.
Luke would stand, shocked and silent. No, it couldn't be true. Ben told him Vader had killed his father. But in his heart he knew it was true. And Ben had killed his father. There would be no chance of ever seeing him. No chance of bringing him back. Obi-Wan would sense Luke and go outside the hut.
Luke, I'm sorry you had to find out this way.
Find out? Were you never going to tell me the truth? How could you not tell me? You lied to me!
It was for your protection, Luke. Your father, Anakin, was one of the finest Jedi who ever lived. And yet the dark side corrupted his heart. We couldn't risk you falling down that path as well. Knowing the truth before you were ready could have had drastic consequences.
Luke could feel nothing in this moment but anger and betrayal.
I'm done, Ben. I want nothing to do with the Jedi. I don't need Yoda's training. I'm leaving. I'm going back to the rebellion.
Luke, please listen to reason.
Ben's words would fall on deaf ears as he would leave. Hopping into his X-Wing with R2, Luke would take one last look at Ben before leaving. Leia would ask what went wrong and where Luke was going. Ben would stand there in silent sadness. Soon, everything would come out. About Vader, Anakin, and Luke.
Maybe we should go after him. I can try to talk some sense into him.
No.
Yoda would step forward.
Skywalker has chosen his path. The light he must find on his own.
The Emperor remains our greatest threat, Master. Neither you nor I have the power to stop him.
No. But that power she may possess.
What? What are you talking about?
The blood of Anakin Skywalker runs not only through Luke's veins, but yours as well. The child of Vader, you are.
Leia would sit in absolute shock.
Perhaps we should tell you what I should have told Luke after the Battle of Yavin.
Ben would tell Leia everything, and though upset at having this information kept from her, she would take the news better than Luke had.
Train as a Jedi. You must. If defeat the Empire, the rebellion will.
But why not Luke? What do I have that Luke doesn't?
Strong is young Skywalker, but much anger there is in him. Like his father, peace in himself he must find, if he is to continue his training.
Leia, you will require much training, but Yoda believes that you are more grounded. You have a serious mind and have shown great leadership. With these attributes, you may become a far greater Jedi than that of your father, or even greater than us.
Leia would consider this, but would also ask about the rebellion.
The rebellion has very strong leaders. They can do without your absence, at least for a while. With Vader gone, the Empire has lost one of their most fearsome assets.
Leia would think, and soon after she would agree to train as a Jedi.
Chewie and I'll go back to the rebellion. We'll check on Luke and try to talk to him.
Obi-Wan would give Han a coy smile. And what of all this talk of looking out for yourself?
Don't push it, you old fossil. Luke is my friend. Besides, I couldn't stay out of this fight forever. When you need a lift off this mud hole, activate this beacon. Chewie and I will be here in no time.
After saying goodbye to Leia, Han and Chewie would leave with 3PO staying behind with Leia. Leia would begin her training in the morning. After a day or so, Han would reach the Rebellion's rendezvous point and would land the Falcon in the hangar. After speaking to the Rebel security, Han would be taken to Mon Mothma.
Well, I must say, we did not expect you to return, Han Solo.
Well, before I offer you my service, I need to talk to Luke. Where is he quartered?
I'm afraid we've had no contact from Commander Skywalker since he evacuated Echo Base.
What? He said he was going back to the rebellion. What happened?
As I've said, he has had no contact with us since our evacuation.
I'm gonna go see if I can find out where he is. He was in a single fighter, so he can't have gone too far off course.
Han would ready the Falcon and head out towards Luke's path from Dagobah. Meanwhile, Leia would be learning the basics from Obi-Wan before continuing on to more advanced techniques from Yoda. Within a week, Leia would already be progressing and learning faster than Luke during his training with Yoda. Yoda and Obi-Wan would tell her stories of the Jedi of old and how their order was destroyed, teaching her of their success, but also their ultimate failure. During this time, Han would be searching the expanse of space between the Rebellion rendezvous point and Dagobah. He would be nearing the point of calling off his search when suddenly, the Falcon's scanner would catch a very faint signal. Flying towards it, Han would spot an almost completely destroyed X-Wing, and sitting in the astromech slot, a badly damaged R2-D2 running dangerously low on power, transmitting a distress signal. Han and Chewie would use a cable to tow R2's damaged body onto the ship. Chewie and Han would patch up R2 as best as they could and try to talk to him.
R2, you remember anything? What happened? Where is Luke? Who attacked you? Who took him?
R2 would display a very crackled and very distorted hologram of the attack, and a familiar ship attacking them.
Oh boy.
Ooh, boy. Yeah, I really got sidetracked with this one. Welcome back to Concordia Jedi, guys, and to this part 2 of What If Obi-Wan Killed Darth Vader in A New Hope. And boy, let me tell you, I know I've said this before, but the reason this one took so long was, I really burnt myself out while recording and editing the first one to the point where I got so tired of even thinking of completing this. But I'm finally back in a mindset where we're ready to finish it. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and showing continual interest in the what ifs. So without any further ado, let's get right back into it. Just a heads up, the audio quality going forward might be a little bit different because this is an older recording. Like I said, I had everything recorded. I just could not bring myself to edit it. So, without further ado, let's go. When we left off, Han had made a terrible discovery about what had happened to Luke, and Leia was continuing her training with Yoda and Obi-Wan on Dagobah. While levitating large stones one day, Leia could feel a cold shiver down her spine, drawing her attention towards the direction of the cave. Asking what was in there, Yoda would tell her of the cave, and that she must go in, advising her not to take her blaster. Leia would agree to this and would enter the cave, the feeling of darkness surrounding her as Obi-Wan would observe from a distance. Suddenly, Leia would be encountered by a dark hooded figure walking towards her. Leia's throat would suddenly tighten as the figure would grip her neck with the Force. Fighting back, Leia would send a powerful Force push towards the figure, sending them backwards. The figure would then send torrents of lightning at Leia, letting out a blood-curdling cackle. Leia would barely be able to catch the attack and force it back. The energy would build and burst, sending both of them flying back, knocking the assailant headfirst into a rock. Leia would rush over and remove the hood from her attacker's face, only to see
Luke!
A twisted, scarred visage of Luke would be staring back at her before vanishing. Leia would rush out of the cave and tell Yoda and Ben about what happened. Yoda would converse with Ben, both realizing the danger in this situation.
What should I do?
Complete your training. You must.
But what about Luke? He could be in trouble.
Difficult to see, the future is. Always in motion is the future.
Ben would suddenly sense a new presence entering the atmosphere. The Falcon would land and Han would run out, hugging Leia.
Did you find Luke?
Afraid not.
Chewie would come out carrying R2's still damaged body.
Oh no! R2! What happened to you? Oh, how do you keep getting yourself into these situations?
Relax, Goldenrod. Chewie can fix him up, but you're lucky we found him when we did.
Han, what happened to Luke?
Han would tell Leia about them finding the X-Wing and no sign of Luke, and of the Slave One.
I have to go. We have to find Luke.
Patience, Leia. If Luke has been captured by a bounty hunter, somebody obviously hired him to do so.
The Emperor.
If this is the case, you would stand no chance against him as you are. Even with the full force of the rebellion behind you, you would be killed. Or worse.
But we can't just sit here and do nothing. He's my brother.
Leia, I know the feeling of helplessness. Of knowing someone you love is suffering, but unable to help them. But if you are taken, if the Emperor claims you, then all hope will be lost.
Yes, to Obi-Wan you must listen. Strong you have become, but stronger still you must become, if you are to save Luke.
Leia would sit, feeling the hopelessness of the situation surround her. In the end, however, she would agree to complete her training first. Seeing Leia in distress, Han would decide to stay a few days to comfort Leia while Chewie and 3PO fixed R2. As he talked more with Leia, however, days would become weeks. He would make an occasional trip off-world to keep in contact with the rebellion, and of course to stock up on supplies and provisions. Let's be honest, he wasn't going to touch Yoda's stew with a 10-foot pole. But he would always be sure to stay close by. Soon, Leia would have progressed even further in her training, her skills far beyond Luke's in Return of the Jedi.
I think it's time for you to take your next step as a Jedi.
Yoda would emerge from his hut with a box of materials, including a small, colorless crystal.
You are now ready to construct your lightsaber. Ordinarily, you would have been expected to harvest your own crystal, but these days it's nearly impossible to find one. Luckily, Master Yoda has kept a few relics from the old days. You may study my lightsaber for reference, but in order to make the crystal your own, you must meditate and imbue the crystal with your energy.
Leia would nod and step into the Falcon, finding a small room where she could concentrate. Using Obi-Wan's lightsaber and a book of instructions, Leia would spend over a day meditating and concentrating until finally, she completed her lightsaber.
You finished it?
I think so.
Well, go on.
Taking a deep breath, Leia would activate her lightsaber. A vibrant blue blade would flash to life in front of her. It was perfect. Han would give Leia a coy smile.
Congrats, Jedi.
In that moment, Leia would pull Han into a passionate embrace. Within the next few weeks, Leia would have vastly improved in her skills with a lightsaber. Soon the time would come. Leia would be ready. Han and Chewie would ready the Falcon and Leia would talk with Yoda and Ben.
No more training do you require. Ready you are for the task ahead.
So where should I start? I need to find Luke and help him.
Our first course of action should be to rendezvous with the rebellion. If anyone knows the Emperor's next move, they will.
Will you come with us, Master Yoda?
Weak I am growing. Of no use I would be to you. Remain here. I will.
Yoda would say goodbye to Ben and Leia as they would enter the Falcon and fly through the air into the atmosphere.
May the Force be with you.
The Falcon would reach the Alliance fleet, and upon their arrival, Leia would be greeted warmly and brought up to speed with everything they had learned. They had discovered that the Empire had secretly begun construction on a new Death Star far more powerful than the first, and from here onward, events would play out similarly as they did in Return of the Jedi. They would learn of the shield generator on Endor and of the Emperor's arrival, overseeing the Death Star's construction. Except here, because Han never reunited with Lando, Han and Chewie would be selected for the attack on the Death Star, and Leia would be sent to Endor with Obi-Wan and a team of rebel soldiers. During this time period, Obi-Wan would be around 61 years old. Combined with his advanced aging due to the years of stress under the harsh twin suns of Tatooine, it would be clear to him that he was no longer in his prime, and that his involvement in this mission would be considered questionable by many of the other rebels. But Obi-Wan knew he still had life in his old bones, and if he stood on the sidelines and let that flame inside his heart die out, he wouldn't forgive himself. He would be there for his apprentice and for the rebellion. Upon arriving on Endor, things would go differently from how they originally transpired. Seeing the Imperial scout troopers, Leia would ask Ben how they would get past them.
Perhaps it is time we put your training to good use.
Sneaking up behind two of the scouts, Leia and Ben would mind trick them into stunning the other two scouts, knocking them unconscious. Before they could process what had happened, the two scouts would find themselves disarmed and under arrest. After a few more mind tricks, they would discover the location of the shield generator. However, night would be approaching swiftly and the rebels would set up camp for the evening. As they rested, however, and Leia discussed plans for confronting Palpatine, the two Jedi would sense several beings surrounding them. Igniting their lightsabers, Leia and Obi-Wan would stand ready for a fight as the rebels would wake up. Soon, they would find themselves surrounded, not by stormtroopers, but by several small, furry creatures with primitive weaponry.
Master, what are these things?
Natives.
The creatures would get closer, prodding several soldiers with their spears. The creatures would tense up, preparing to attack until a voice spoke up.
No, please, no violence!
The creatures' eyes would suddenly grow wide as they would chitter amongst themselves before starting to bow towards 3PO, chanting something in their native tongue.
How peculiar.
Obi-Wan, recognizing this behavior, would smile slightly. He'd traveled far enough in his days to know how to handle a situation like this.
3PO, you are an interpreter, are you not?
Of course, sir. Remember, I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication.
Do you understand them?
I believe so. I do believe they are under the impression that I am some sort of god.
As I thought. 3PO, I need you to listen to what I tell you. Tell them that their world is currently in grave danger, and that we are here to help. If they can provide us with supplies and shelter for the night, we will do everything in our power to liberate their planet and leave them in peace.
3PO would talk to the leader of this group of creatures, telling them everything Obi-Wan said. All the while, Leia would offer some of their food to several of their new guests. Seeing this gesture and believing what 3PO said, the creatures would agree to take them to their village on the condition that they hand their weapons over until they were deemed not to be a threat. Reluctantly, the rebels and the Jedi would hand their weapons over, and they would be escorted to the village in the trees and brought before the chief of these strange beings, who they would learn are known as Ewoks. Obi-Wan would put his skills as a negotiator to good use here, as 3PO would translate everything he said. He would tell them of the struggles of the rebellion and the tyranny of the Empire. Soon, not only would the Ewoks agree to aid them in their struggles, but each of them were now honorary members of the tribe. Leia would make friends with several of the Ewoks, including a particularly friendly one named Wicket. Obi-Wan, meanwhile, would be standing outside on the Canopy Bridge, contemplating their next move. Obi-Wan was intelligent. He knew that if the Emperor was on board the Death Star, he would no doubt have his own station aboard, one that would be heavily guarded. It would take no small amount of stealth and cunning to reach the Emperor. Leia would join him and they would formulate a plan to find the Imperial outpost on the Forest Moon. There would no doubt be a transport there that they could take to the Death Star. Once on board, Leia, using stolen stormtrooper armor, would handcuff Obi-Wan and bring him before the Emperor, where they would spring their attack. Within the next few hours, they would leave and the deactivation of the shield generator would be left to the Rebels and the Ewoks. A plan would be formulated, and soon the Rebels would part with Leia and Ben, who would make their way to the Imperial outpost. Using a mind trick on the two guards keeping watch over the outpost elevator, Leia would steal the stormtrooper's armor and put it on, keeping her lightsaber hidden with Obi-Wan while she would hold on to his. They would be confronted by Imperial security, and Leia would report that this Jedi had come to turn himself in. Though suspicious, the Imperial officer would send Leia with a squad of stormtroopers to a waiting shuttle, and after being given security clearance, Leia and Ben would be on their way. All the while, the Rebel soldiers would infiltrate the shield generator, and things would play out similarly, with the Rebels getting captured, only for the Ewoks to intervene and even the odds. The Alliance fleet would arrive above Endor, and the battle would begin with Han and Chewie piloting the Falcon with expert accuracy, waiting for the shield to fall. At this time, Leia and Ben would arrive, confronted by a team of security officers prepared to take Ben to the Emperor. Leia would subtly wave her hand in front of their faces.
The Emperor has requested I deliver the Jedi personally.
Giving Leia the clearance codes, they would make their way to the elevator and would make their way to the throne room. Removing the armor, Leia along with Ben would keep their lightsabers ready. The elevator would slow down, and soon, the doors would open as Leia and Ben would be confronted by two of the Emperor's guards. Leia and Obi-Wan would quickly dispatch them by tossing them aside and knocking them unconscious. Approaching closer, the chair at the top of the throne room steps would slowly turn, revealing Emperor Palpatine with a crooked smile on his face.
Master Kenobi and young Leia, welcome. I have been expecting you two.
Your security leaves much to be desired, Your Highness.
Do not flatter yourself, Master Kenobi. I knew you would come. Do you think me so blind as to believe your plan would go unnoticed? You may have killed Vader, but in doing so, you opened my eyes to new possibilities. Vader was a hollow shell of a Sith. I knew that one day I would find a new apprentice.
The door behind Ben and Leia would open, as a hooded figure would emerge, igniting a blood-red lightsaber.
And I have.
Utilizing this distraction, Palpatine would send a barrage of lightning at Obi-Wan, sending him flying back into the wall with great force. Leia would activate her lightsaber and charge at Palpatine, only for her blade to be blocked by the dark figure.
Foolish girl, you cannot hope to compare with the power of the dark side. Now, my apprentice, destroy these two feeble Jedi and complete what your father could not.
Yes, my master.
Leia would gasp as the figure would remove his cloak. It was Luke, but not the Luke she once knew. Not the Luke who saved her on the Death Star. He was twisted, his face scarred and filled with rage, his eyes alight with a sickly yellow glow. His once blue lightsaber now shone a deep crimson.
Luke, please don't do this. Don't let him control you.
Luke would simply laugh, as he and Leia would engage in a terrible battle. Brother and sister would be so evenly matched as their blades collided. Meanwhile on Endor, the rebel soldiers would manage to destroy the shield generator, though they would experience terrible casualties. With the shield down, Han and the other fighters would begin their assault, avoiding the blasts from the Death Star and the Star Destroyers. Obi-Wan would slowly rise to his feet, activating his lightsaber. Palpatine would turn his gaze toward him.
You were foolish to come here, Kenobi. Just as Skywalker fell by your hand, so shall you fall by mine.
Palpatine's next torrent of lightning would meet Obi-Wan's blade, the blue plasma beam bending and warping under the might of the Emperor's power. Leia, seeing Ben in trouble, would disengage from Luke and rush to his aid, only for her fallen brother to reach out with the Force, grabbing her throat.
Luke, no, this isn't you.
Silence! Your death will spell the end of the rebellion and the end of the Jedi.
Across the galaxy, Yoda would feel his energy drain. Soon, he would die. But he would not allow his death to be without merit. Closing his eyes, Yoda would die, passing into the Force. Leia would struggle to breathe, her sight growing dark. Ben's strength would soon fail him, and the wrath of Palpatine would send him to the next world. Suddenly, a voice would call out to Ben and Leia.
Alone you are not. Rise and fight you will. The Force is with you, as am I.
Ben and Leia would close their eyes, calling on the Force and every ounce of strength they had. Ben would send a mighty Force blast at Palpatine, momentarily breaking the Sith Lord's concentration. Leia would gather her strength, and with a shockwave of energy she would break free from Luke's grasp, sending him flying back and giving her enough time to rush to Ben's aid.
Impudent child.
Palpatine would direct his full power at Leia, bringing her to her knees, her shrieks of anguish filling the room, only overpowered by the mad laughter of the Emperor. Ben would try to rise to his feet, completely exhausted and on the verge of collapsing. Luke would be dazed, his vision blurry. Seeing his dark master on the verge of victory, he would smile. Suddenly, however, he was overcome with another feeling, one of sadness, emptiness.
Luke, follow not your father's path, or lose the only family you have left you will.
Family? What was he talking about? Then suddenly, it would dawn on him. This feeling he had always sensed around Leia, this connection. It was more than simple friendship. It couldn't be, but in his heart he knew. Leia was his sister. In this moment, the small spark of light inside Luke reignited. There was still a chance. He could make things right. Luke would grab his weapon and, rushing over to the Emperor, Luke would throw himself between Leia and Palpatine, deflecting his wrath, the bolts of lightning sparking off in every direction, causing fire and flames to sprout from different corners of the throne room.
So you have elected to die along with the Jedi. So be it. You will not stop me, Skywalker.
I will not be your puppet any longer.
Ben would rise to his feet, joining Luke. Leia, though hurt and weakened, would rise as well. Palpatine would back away from the three of them. He could not easily take down all three. Suddenly, he would smile. Sending a blinding flash of lightning at the three Jedi, they would be forced to deflect, giving Palpatine enough time to rise into the air using the Force. Palpatine would grab onto the support beams and the very foundations of the throne room, beginning to crush the room, intending to destroy the entire structure.
You Jedi failed to grasp the true power of the dark side. Your deaths will be swift and terrible, but I will reign eternal as ruler of all the galaxy.
The floor would crack and rumble. Hopelessness would set into Leia's heart. All she had worked for her entire life would be gone. Ben would close his eyes. The Force called him home. Luke, however, would stand up. Dropping his lightsaber, he would rush forward, grabbing onto the Emperor and using all his might would contain the two of them in a large dome of Force energy. The Emperor would cry out in horror. He couldn't break free.
Luke!
Go! Hurry!
Leia would retrieve Luke's weapon, and with Ben, the two would escape down the barely functioning elevator, just as the throne room would erupt in a flash of Force energy, ending the Emperor and his tyranny, and seemingly ending the son of Anakin Skywalker as well. Meanwhile, Han would reach the exposed reactor shaft and pilot the Falcon inside.
This is it, Chewie. This is all or nothing.
The Falcon would weave its way through the tight, narrow corridors, making its way closer and closer to the main reactor. Leia and Ben would make their way to their shuttle, hopping on board and exiting the hangar before flying out of the doomed battle station. Ben would collapse, not only from exhaustion, but sadness. Leia as well would be filled with great sorrow, and yet there was something else. Something she couldn't describe. Before she could think more on the matter, several TIE fighters would begin firing upon them. Using all her skills, she would try to evade them. Soon, however, their shuttle would take a direct hit. One more blast and they would be vaporized. The TIE fighters, however, would be shot down by laser blasts, giving Leia the chance she needed to escape the dogfights and make their way back to the forest moon. She glanced behind to see who saved them, but saw nothing. Han would finally reach the main reactor as the Falcon and Red Squadron would destroy the power regulators, causing the reactor to collapse in on itself. Han and the others would make it out of the Death Star with just moments to spare as the battle station would explode in a massive ball of fire. With the Empire's greatest weapon destroyed, the Alliance would reconvene on Endor. Han would find Leia and Ben, who would tell him everything. The Alliance would hold a grand memorial for Luke Skywalker. Even as the service would progress, Leia still would not be able to shake the sensation that something was amiss. Ben sensed it too, but he too wouldn't be able to grasp what he was feeling. A few days would pass, and Leia and Ben would be called to an emergency Alliance briefing.
Well, we have searched thoroughly, and though Palpatine's body has been found, there was no sign of Luke's.
Leia's eyes would light up.
Even stranger, the Emperor's personal shuttle was reported to have taken off shortly before the station was destroyed. Princess, is there something you would like to share?
No, it's nothing.
After the briefing, Ben and Leia would talk on the bridge overlooking the vast forest landscape.
Luke, I think he's alive.
You may be right. Come to think of it, I never did feel his presence leave this world.
Should we look for him?
I sense Luke doesn't want to be found. Not yet, at least. Otherwise, he would have rejoined us here. For now, I think he must follow his own path. But we will see him again.
Leia would smile, looking at the setting sun. At the same time, on a distant world, a hooded figure would stare at a rising twin sunset. Luke would stand atop a large cliff overlooking the Dune Sea. If there was one thing he was sure of, it's that the threat of the dark side would never truly be gone. It consumed his father. It nearly consumed him. But he would make it his new mission to combat the forces of darkness when they arose. Maybe not as a Jedi, but something more. One day, he would reunite with his friends. But for now, his destiny lies along a different path. A path between the light and the dark. Obi-Wan would continue to train Leia, who would marry Han, and soon give birth to a young child who they named Ben. Leia and Ben would spend the next couple of years finding Force-sensitive beings and training them in the ways of the Force, setting up an academy on Yavin 4. The day would soon come, however, when Obi-Wan Kenobi would pass away, his spirit manifesting as a Force ghost, watching over Leia and her students along with Yoda. Leia would become the new Grand Master of a new generation of Jedi, helping to bring peace to a troubled galaxy. Whew! So there you go, guys. Now, I know I took some wild turns with this one, the reason being that I've seen a few other channels cover this scenario, and they usually end up with the same happy ending scenario of the Empire being destroyed and Luke becoming a Jedi Master, sometimes with Leia, and setting up a new order. However, I wanted to go with something a bit more bittersweet and, in my opinion, more realistic. Leia was definitely the more level-headed and strong-willed of Anakin's kids, and I feel that had Obi-Wan killed Vader, the truth would eventually come out, and I really think Luke would be upset. Combine this with Yoda's initial refusal to train him and Palpatine's need for a new apprentice, and it creates a perfect storm in which Leia trains as a Jedi and Luke is captured and tortured, being twisted and warped into becoming a servant of Sidious. As for the ending, I feel in this kind of scenario, Luke would not be so keen to jump right into training as a Jedi. He would want to wait until he was more experienced and wiser before making such a commitment. I think he would come to realize that his destiny would be to serve the light, maybe not as a Jedi, but as something new. Who knows though? At some point he may very well choose to follow the Jedi path when he feels he's become a more patient and wise servant of the Force. I also feel that this was just a bit more of an interesting departure from what we've come to expect from Luke. More nuanced in a way. But let me know what you guys think. Did you guys like this video? Did you not like it? Did I go too far, or could you see this as a plausible path for the story to take? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates. We'll see you next time, and remember, the Force will be with you. Always. Hey guys, and welcome back to Concordia Jedi. So, I know I said I don't really like to cover scenarios that a lot of other channels have covered, but I'm making an exception here because I really think I have a good story. Before we start though, thank you guys so much for being patient while waiting for a new What If. I know a lot of you were expecting the second part of What If Obi-Wan killed Vader in A New Hope, but as I've said before, I really burnt myself out working on that one and the whole scenario. It will come out, I will finish it, I promise you, but for right now, this is just something to tide you over until that. Also, a big thanks to the voice actors. Some of them are returning voice actors, some of them are new. These guys did a fantastic job, and I will link their channels or wherever they want to be credited in the comments. So, let's get right into it. What if Vader survived Return of the Jedi? In Return of the Jedi, Vader, now once again Anakin Skywalker, throws Palpatine into the reactor shaft of the second Death Star to his death. And dies shortly after, looking upon his son with his own eyes, and passing into the Force, becoming a Force spirit. But let's take the scenario in a different direction. Let's say that Vader's injuries were not as severe as they were in canon. He tells Luke that he was right and slowly starts to pass out as Luke puts his helmet back on, allowing him to breathe, but knowing that he needs medical attention soon. Wait, the Alliance would never allow this. Unless Luke and Vader would escape the Death Star before it exploded and head to the forest moon below, where Luke would find Leia and tell her he needed to speak with her in private.
Luke, what's going on?
Leia, we don't have a lot of time. It's about Vader. He's alive. He's here with me on board the shuttle.
What? You brought him here?
It's not like that, Leia. He saved me. I brought him back, but he's dying. If we can speak to the Alliance leaders...
You want to bring that monster to the Alliance so they can help him? Have you forgotten everything he's done?
No. No, I haven't. And he will answer for his crimes. But he can't do that if he's dead. He has information on the Empire that could be invaluable. The Emperor is gone. But the Empire will continue to threaten the freedom of other worlds if we don't stop them. We would be fools not to take this opportunity. Please. Leia would think things over, giving Luke a stern look.
I'll contact Mon Mothma. But don't pretend this isn't about him being your father.
He's your father too, Leia. You
that
need to...
thing in there is not my father. Don't make me regret this decision more than I do.
Leia would walk away as Luke went into the shuttle to tend to Vader, who would be sitting up, leaning against his seat, tired and having trouble breathing. You're going to be okay, Father. Leia is contacting the Alliance. They're going to help in exchange for information.
Son, everything I did...
It's okay. You've left that life behind.
No. I will carry the scars of my sins with me forever, trapped inside of a prison of my own making.
You did terrible things, Father, and you need to answer for them. But I can help you if you help us. Vader would stay quiet, his mechanical breathing breaking the silence. Within an hour, several heavily armed rebel transports would land in front of the shuttle, as near 50 armed rebel soldiers would surround the area.
Lord Vader, come out slowly. If you make a move, we will open fire.
The shuttle door would open, and Vader would appear with Luke helping him walk. That's him! It's Vader! Keep your guard up. Don't hurt him. He's unarmed. The rebels would slowly move in, putting Vader in a full-body restraint transport and bringing him to the ship with Luke following in tow. Vader would be taken to the Alliance capital ship, where doctors would work to stabilize Vader, his life no longer in danger. But he would be kept in full-body restraints under constant supervision. Mon Mothma would enter with Leia, Han, and Chewbacca following behind.
Darth Vader, you are charged with crimes against the galaxy under your service to the Empire. Any information you give will be taken into consideration during your trial. Should your information prove true and invaluable, you may be spared an execution.
Vader would remain silent as Luke would speak up. Han, Chewie.
You want to tell us what's going on here, kid? Took a lot of convincing to keep Chewie here from going ballistic on this monster.
Han, Vader is my father.
What? And you never brought this up?
Maybe I should have. But now you know. I'll explain everything during his trial. For now, if you don't mind, I need to speak with my father. Han would be upset, feeling a bit betrayed by Luke keeping this secret, but would oblige and leave with Chewbacca and Mon Mothma. Leia, however, would stay behind, staring at Vader with an ice-cold glare. Leia, you have a right to be upset.
Upset? Upset? You are defending a man responsible for the deaths of countless people, including my father and my homeworld. I am far past upset.
Do you think you're the only one conflicted by this? Leia would be taken aback at Luke's sudden outburst. When he killed Ben, all I wanted to do was end his life. When I fought him on Bespin, I was under the impression that he was responsible for killing Anakin Skywalker. I wanted revenge. Then I learned the truth. I was blinded by my anger. I didn't think there was any light left inside him. Now I know there was. If it weren't for him, I would have been killed. I know he's hurt you, and so many others. But this could be our opportunity not only to finish the Empire, but to rebuild the Jedi Order. To make things right. Leia would glare at Luke.
You do what you feel you have to do, but I want nothing to do with it.
Leia would leave the room as Vader would stare at her, dropping his head in shame. It's okay, Father. I'm not leaving you. The following day, Vader would be brought before the leaders of the Rebel Alliance who would oversee Vader's trial.
Lord Vader, you have been brought here under charges of aiding in the destruction of the Old Republic, the formation of the Galactic Empire, and the deaths of thousands of innocents. Do you deny these charges?
No.
You are represented by Commander Skywalker. Commander, do you have anything to say?
I do. Luke would stand before the Alliance, many of whom would stare at Luke with disdain for defending Vader. In the waning days of the Republic, there was a Jedi who fought in the Clone Wars. A heroic, virtuous man who aided in the salvation of countless innocents in their planets. Who fought against tyranny and the dark side's corruption of all that is good. That man stands before you today. Anakin Skywalker. My father. There would be audible murmuring and gasps from the Alliance. Anakin Skywalker was one of the greatest and most powerful Jedi of his era. But he wasn't perfect. He allowed fear and a desire for power to corrupt him with the Emperor's manipulation. Manipulation that almost no one could withstand. I'm not here to defend the actions of Darth Vader, a monster behind a mask. I am here to defend Anakin Skywalker. My father has information that could be vital to the rebellion, and aid in bringing back peace to the galaxy. I urge you to put aside your anger and withhold judgment upon him until such a time as he has been afforded the opportunity to make right his many wrongs.
This is very shocking information indeed, Commander. Be that as it may, we cannot be sure of Vader's true intentions. Many here would see him put to death, and not without reason.
If I may speak, Mon Mothma, I served alongside Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, when Mon Cala fell under the Separatist threat. Were it not for him and the Republic forces, Mon Cala would have fallen and the rebellion would not have many of its most vital resources. However, it seems to me, Commander, that Vader turned on the Emperor not out of a desire to change, but to save you. So, I must ask, Lord Vader, do you believe your good deed over the past 2 days is sufficient recompense for all the terrible acts you have carried out under the Empire?
Vader would stay silent, looking up at Admiral Akbar.
No. My atrocities are not wiped away by one selfless act. I have committed terrible crimes. Crimes for which I deserve to be put to death. I have taken many lives and felt no remorse. Even the lives of those I once called friends. I will tell you what I know of the Empire's contingency plans. Their hidden bases, their leaders. After that, I will accept whatever fate you deem fitting. Know only this. It was not I who saved my son. He saved me. I only wish I had seen the light long ago.
Luke would look at his father, proud, but saddened at what he had become. Admiral, I urge you not to sentence my father to death. He is an asset we cannot afford to be rid of. Not only for the rebellion, but the Jedi Order.
I'm afraid the decision is not mine to make alone. We will adjourn for now and reconvene later to pass judgment. Until then, your father will remain in custody.
The trial would adjourn as Vader would be taken to his confinement.
You okay, kid?
I don't know, Han. Do you think they're going to execute him?
I won't lie, it doesn't look good. I have no love for the guy myself, but if there's one thing I know, it's that you're going to do what it takes to see him spared.
I can't imagine Leia's too thrilled.
That's an understatement. Rightfully so. Vader tortured her, had her planet destroyed, had me frozen, cut off your hand.
I get it, Han.
Don't worry about it too much, kid. Whatever happens, we're here for you.
Thanks, Han. Over the next several hours, Luke would visit his father, talking to him, learning about his life as a Jedi. A tragic tale beyond what he knew. I won't let them kill you, Father.
If it comes to that, it is for the best, son.
Commander Skywalker, the prisoner is to be escorted to the bridge. Luke would oblige, and father and son would be led to the chamber again, where the Alliance leaders would once again be gathered.
Lord Vader, you will inform the Alliance of all the Empire's secrets. After these secrets have been verified, you will be executed for your crimes against the galaxy.
You can't do this.
I'm sorry, Commander. The decision is final.
Vader simply stared at his son as he was taken away to his cell. Leia would walk over to Luke.
Luke.
Luke wouldn't even look at her, and would simply return back to his quarters. Over the next few days, Luke would make frequent visits to his father, who would be telling several rebellion leaders all the secrets of the Empire. Because of this information, many Imperial facilities and crucial bases would be raided and destroyed, severely crippling the already damaged Empire. Soon, the day would come for Vader's execution by firing squad. Luke was in attendance with his friends, his hood up, covering his eyes, unable to witness what was about to happen.
Lord Vader, for your crimes against the galaxy, you are hereby to be executed. Do you have any final words or requests?
Remove my mask. I want to live my final moments outside of this terrible device. Allow me to look upon my children with my own eyes. One last time.
Two soldiers would come to Vader's side, removing his mask and helmet, revealing the scarred, pale image of Anakin Skywalker, his blue eyes staring at his son. Luke would stare back at his father, his rage boiling inside at the thought of losing him.
Ready. Aim.
Before the soldiers could fire, Luke would leap from his seat, activating his lightsaber and stepping in front of Vader.
Commander Skywalker, stand down immediately.
No! I can't allow this to happen!
Very well. Set your weapons to stun and remove Commander Skywalker from the premises.
Affirmative. Set to stun.
Luke would stay firmly in place. The rebels would set their blasters to stun, aiming directly at Luke. Suddenly, several stun blasts would hit the rebel soldiers, knocking them down. Luke would turn to see Leia aiming her blaster. Han and Chewie would be equally surprised.
General Organa, what are you doing?
I don't know, but I know I'll probably regret it.
Leia would fire at Mon Mothma, stunning her, as several rebel soldiers would aim their weapons at her. Han would step in front of her, blaster at the ready.
I hate when no one tells me anything.
Luke set out a mighty force push their way, knocking them back and freeing his father from his restraints, reaffixing his mask.
Son.
I'm sorry, Father, but I won't lose you again. An alarm would blare as Luke would look at Leia, who would return the gaze.
Go. Get far away.
Luke nodded, rushing with Vader to the hangar, non-lethally dispatching of several rebel soldiers along the way. Finding R2 there, they would board a medical transport and take off. Meanwhile, Leia, Han, Chewie, and 3PO would rush to the Falcon.
You realize we just committed treason, right?
Luke knows what he's doing. He needs to see his plan through. The rebellion will be after us, but I doubt they'll be able to catch the Falcon.
Before they could reach the Falcon, They would be stopped by Lando, standing in front of the ship, blaster pointed at Han and the others.
You want to tell me what's going on here?
Trying to figure that out myself, to be honest.
Lando, step aside. We need to leave.
And abandon the rebellion you devoted your whole life to? Think about what you're doing.
I have. I'm putting my trust in Luke. And the Force.
Luke just ran off with a tyrant. And you let it happen. Do you realize what could happen now? Vader might not be as changed as Luke thinks.
Maybe. Maybe not. But my mind is made up. Do you think I would have turned on the Alliance if I wasn't sure Luke knows what he's doing? You can stay, Lando, but we can't.
Lando would lower his blaster, thinking over her words.
You better take care of this one, Han. She's certainly got a lot of spirit.
Trust me, I'm well aware.
Footsteps could be heard coming through a nearby corridor.
Stun me, quick, or they'll know I helped you escape.
Leia would raise her blaster.
Oh, and please take care of the Falcon. She's still my baby.
With a smile, Leia would stun Lando. They would then rush aboard the Falcon, fleeing just in time.
Well, Your Highness, where to now?
Head to the Outer Rim. Someplace without rebel presence.
Han would nod, setting coordinates and jumping to hyperspace. Meanwhile, Luke would deactivate any device on the ship that would allow them to be traced before setting the ship to autopilot and go into the back to see Vader, sitting, placing a hand on R2.
Luke, you cannot protect me forever. My judgment will come sooner or later.
Then it'll be later. For now, we're going to Bespin. The rebellion won't track us there. You do stick out a bit, so I'm going to modify your armor. I'll do anything I can to help you. Vader would stare at his son.
I'm sorry, son. For everything.
I know, Father. But this is our chance to set things right. Once we finish on Bespin, we'll go to Tatooine and visit Ben's home. He has some things there that might help us. In the meantime, since this is a medical transport, R2 and I might be able to modify your suit a bit. I'm not sure how much we can do, but anything is better than seeing you trapped in that thing.
Very well. I trust you.
The two would make their way to Bespin, and Vader would remain on the ship while Luke went to gather parts and supplies. Vader would sit, thinking about all the choices he made that led him to this point.
Anakin.
Vader would look up quickly, seeing the spirits of Obi-Wan and Yoda in front of him. Vader would fall to his knees.
Obi-Wan.
I am happy to see you again, Anakin. The real you.
Master, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I turned my back on everything I was supposed to protect.
Relax. You have committed, Skywalker. But these acts, you have a chance to make right.
How? What can I do to make things right?
Luke is powerful, but there's still more he can learn, especially from someone of your experience. Train him. Help him rebuild and reshape the Jedi Order better than it ever was.
Yes, I will.
You must go now, Anakin. The Force will be with you, and so will we.
The spirits faded as Vader stood, looking at his reflection in the polished metal of the ship. Meanwhile, Luke would be purchasing materials from multiple vendors and keeping a low profile until he spotted something. Something buried beneath a shelf of trinkets and tools. Where did you get that?
That old thing? Found in the underbelly of the city by a maintenance crew. I'll give you a good deal if you want it.
How much?
How much you got?
Luke looked at the last of his credits and handed them over along with a spare blaster before returning to the ship where Vader sat in meditation. Father, let's get to work. The transport craft they had taken had an emergency medical room. It would be risky, but it could work. You'll need to be sedated for this to work. I don't know much about this technology, but R2 can help. Do you trust me? Vader would put his hand on Luke's shoulder.
With my life,
Luke would hook Vader up to a machine supplying oxygen to him while he was unconscious. The vital parts of his life support system would have to remain intact, but there was something he could do about the helmet. Over the course of a day and a half, Luke and R2 would work to remove and restructure elements of Vader's armor with the supplies he had purchased. By the end of the procedure, Luke was exhausted and tired, but managed to retool Vader's apparatus to allow him to breathe without the use of his helmet, and attaching an old droid hand to his wrist. It wasn't a perfect job by any means, but it was the best they could do with the limited resources. Okay, let's see if this works. Luke would activate the necessary life support functions of the suit, and Vader would awaken, opening his eyes. The harsh light was painful at first, but they would adjust. He sat up. The breathing, the horrible sound that had haunted him day in and day out for over 20 years, was now reduced to a simple, quiet hiss of air from an external apparatus attached to his mouth.
Luke.
Luke would smile at his father. There's one more thing. If we're going to rebuild the Jedi Order, you're going to need this. Opening his satchel, Luke removed what he had bought from the vendor. Anakin's lightsaber, the one lost during their duel. Vader hesitated, but slowly grabbed the weapon and activated it. It felt as though he had been reunited with a part of himself lost long ago.
There's one final thing I must do.
Anakin stepped outside of the ship onto the edge of the landing platform, holding his mask and helmet, looking into the cold eyes of his dark former self. Then he dropped it, letting it fall into the clouds below before returning to Luke.
We will rebuild the Jedi Order, but we can't do it alone. Most of the Jedi are gone, but I think I know someone who might still be alive who can help us. But that will have to wait. Before we go to Tatooine, we should go to Naboo. There's someone we need to see.
Packing up the ship, Anakin and Luke would chart a course for Naboo. Upon their arrival, Anakin led Luke to a mausoleum. Inside, a grave with a cold stone statue in the image of Padme Amidala. Anakin caressed the cheek of the statue and looked at Luke.
Luke, this is your mother.
Luke stepped closer and looked at it, saddened, but feeling a sense of happiness seeing for the first time the face of his mother.
I need a moment. Go to the ship.
Luke would nod, heading to the ship while Anakin knelt at the tomb.
Padme, forgive me for all I've done. I know I will be reunited with you one day. Our son, he saved me. Now I will do what must be done. I will restore the Jedi with Luke, and we will bring peace to the galaxy. I promise you. Goodbye, my love.
With this final goodbye, Anakin stood and returned to the ship with Luke. Tatooine?
Yes. Let's get to work.
And I think that's where we'll end it for now. I realize that I took a few liberties here and there with this scenario, and a few details from the comics and recent additions to canon have been omitted, as those stories are still continuing. But I feel pretty proud of this one. Let me know what you guys think, and if you want me to continue this story. Leave a like and a comment below, and be sure to check out our voice actors. They really did an amazing job. Tell us what scenarios you want to see covered next. We'll see you next time on Concordia Jedi, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.